Today we continue to listen Silavanta Sutta. In this sutta, Venerable Sariputra said that the virtuous and instructed meditators should carefully attend to the 5 aggregates subject to clinging in order to see and understand them as suffering. This means that we must practice vipassana meditation to see dukkha. We need to understand 3 things. What is it that is dukkha? When we say dukkha, we mean the 5 aggregates. We mean mind and matter, which are also impermanent. And what is the characteristics of dukkha? We see that the 5 aggregates, which comprise everything in the world, are oppressed continuously by rise and fall. So the characteristics of dukkha is this constant oppression by rise and fall, which is continuous and never stops. There is not a single moment in our lives when we are not oppressed by rise and fall. And what is dukkha nupassana? A repeated seeing of dukkha. Dukkha nupassana means watching and noting the 5 aggregates during your vipassana meditation and seeing with your own eyes the continuous oppression by rise and fall. So dukkha nupassana is the understanding or knowledge you get from this observation of the 5 aggregates. Only when you observe the 5 aggregates and see them continuously oppressed by rise and fall, can this vipassana knowledge be gained and made your own. This knowledge, the understanding that the 5 aggregates are suffering, dukkha, can be obtained only while you are actively engaged in practicing vipassana meditation. There is no other way to see the rise and fall of the aggregates. Only while you are practicing vipassana, watching them as they rise and fall at the present moment, where you be convinced of their continuous oppression, and you will know that they are dukkha. This kind of knowledge is called dukkha nupassana and is the real seeing of dukkha. In order to see our mind and matter as dukkha, in order to understand the 5 aggregates of suffering, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging as suffering, we must practice vipassana. Here there are 2 kinds of dukkha, viññati dukkha and paramattha dukkha. Vinyati dukkha, superficial suffering, the paramattha dukkha, real suffering. Superficial suffering does not need the practice of vipassana in order to be understood. You cut your finger and then say, oh, it is dukkha, or you hit your knee against something and say, oh, it is dukkha. This kind of understanding of dukkha is superficial. The nature of dukkha is not really seen. To experience the unpleasant feeling involved and then see it as suffering. You just feel it and you know it. Meditation is not needed to understand dukkha. What we are concerned with here is real suffering, the deep understanding of real suffering, real dukkha, paramattha dukkha. The commentary says that we must understand three things. What is it that is dukkha? That is easy to understand. Dukkha is the five aggregates, our mind and matter. They are called dukkha or suffering. When we say suffering, we mean both the five aggregates and the five aggregates of clinging. So it includes all of them. And what is the characteristics of dukkha? You must understand the meanings of the word dukkha correctly. Normally, it means suffering, unpleasant feeling, but its meaning goes deeper than that. You must understand it according to the words of the Buddha. Yatan Nichan Tan Dukkhan. Whatever is impermanent is dukkha. Whatever is impermanent is suffering. This we need to understand. Buddha did not say that whatever is difficult to endure is suffering or anything like that. Buddha said that whatever is impermanent is suffering. If you know something to be impermanent, you also know that it is suffering. So the meanings of the word suffering goes deeper than the surface meaning. We have to go deeply into it in order to understand it. We must remember the saying of the Buddha that whatever is impermanent is suffering. If you want to know whether something is suffering, observe, see if it is permanent or impermanent. If you see it is impermanent, you will know that it is dukkha. It is suffering. And dukkha in Pali have more meaning than what appears on the surface. Dukkha means suffering, something difficult to endure, oppression. So according to the Buddha's definition, whatever is impermanent is suffering. Why should something impermanent be called suffering? Sometimes people enjoy good food, they enjoy good companionship, they enjoy good vacation, they enjoy many things. Are those things dukkha? Are those things suffering? When you are enjoying good food, delicious food, do you say, oh, I'm suffering? No. But according to the Buddha, indeed, you are suffering. Why are such seemingly harmless activities called suffering? You must understand the characteristics of suffering. The commentary gives 3 reasons why the 5 aggregates of clinging are called suffering. The first reason is that they are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. You must keep firmly in mind that constant oppression by rise and fall is the characteristic of dukkha. If you want to know whether or not something is dukkha, you should try to see whether it rises and falls. If it does, it has to be oppressed by the rising and falling, and that oppression is what dukkha means. So, all 5 aggregates, including the 5 aggregates of clinging, upadanakanda, are called dukkha because they are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. Look at everything in the world. You will see that everything is oppressed by rise and fall. And that rise and fall also are constantly oppressed by rise and fall. Can you find a single moment when there is no rise and fall? Can you find a single moment when the process of rise and fall stops? From the moment we take conception, this rise and fall begins to oppress us, and it goes on and on and on throughout our life. There is not a single moment when we are free from rise and fall. There is always rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. When you see things during meditation, you note them as rising and falling, one after another, maybe hundreds of objects. Then you get the impression that everything is oppressed by rising and falling. This rising and falling is a kind of oppression. Falling means destruction, which is a kind of when rising, precursor to falling, that's so that it can fall. The falling is also a kind of oppression. Rising and falling oppress the 5 aggregates every moment, creating continuous oppression. This constant oppression by rise and fall is the characteristic of dukkha, If you understand dukkha in this way, you can accept the fact that enjoying good food, enjoying delicious food is suffering. Whatever you are enjoying is dukkha. Because there is nothing that is not dukkha. And you can accept the teaching of the Buddha that the five aggregates of clinging or mind and matter are suffering. When explaining the first noble truth in his first sermon, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, Buddha said at the end, Vinchupadanakkhandha dukkha. The five aggregates of clinging are suffering, which means in brief that everything in the world is suffering. If you understand this to mean the continuous oppression by rise and fall, you can easily accept the truthfulness of the Buddha's explanation. If you don't understand it, you may want to argue about the teaching of the Buddha and talk about some kinds of happiness, enjoyment, and so forth. But that we need to understand and to hold firmly in our mind. The meaning of dukkha is constant oppression by rise and fall. Now we will turn to another way of understanding the five aggregates of clinging in terms of the 11 aspects listed in the Silavanta Sutta. As you already know, the Venerable Sariputta said that a virtuous and instructed bhikkhu meditator should attend to the five aggregates of clinging as impermanent. This means that a meditator must practice meditation so that you see the five aggregates of clinging as impermanent. Then you must see them as suffering. Now, meditator must see them as a chronic disease. Vinchupadanakkhandha rogato yoniso manasikatapa. So a bhikkhu meditators who is virtuous and instructed must see the aggregates of clinging as a chronic disease. So need to remember, you must see your body and mind. You must see the five aggregates of clinging as a chronic disease. Can you follow me? Meditators must see the aggregates of clinging as a chronic disease. Meditators must see the aggregates of clinging as a chronic disease. So a person who has a chronic disease, such as diabetes, asthma, or high blood pressure, is not free. He cannot eat what he likes, but he must take medicine and avoid eating food that would aggravate his condition. He or she must always be careful. The disease may increase and at times decrease, but he is never in control because of this chronic disease. No matter how careful he is, the chronic disease is stayed there. However much attention and care is given to a chronic disease, it is never cured. In the same way, however much you find fault with the five aggregates, you still have them and you need to attend to them. You must avoid food that is unsuitable for your body. You must avoid living in an unsuitable climate for your body. And you need to take care of a host of other things just because of your five aggregates, mind and matter. So these five aggregates can be viewed as Rogato Yonisamanasikatava, can be viewed as a chronic disease. And then another view, a Bhikkhu meditator who is virtuous and instructed also must see the five aggregates of clinging as a tumor or a soul. So need to remember this view. Can you follow me? Meditator must see the five aggregates of clinging as a tumor. Meditator must see the five aggregates of clinging as a tumor. As a tumor also, you must see when you have a tumor also that oozes blood and pus and causes a lot of pain, you must care for it with medication. Our five aggregates are like a tumor. Many repulsive things ooze out, such as greed, dosa, greed, lova, hatred, dosa, delusion, moha, pride, mana, envy, jealousy. They ooze out of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. They are always oozing out. When we see something beautiful, what oozes out of our eyes? Greed or attachment. And if we see something we don't like, anger oozes out of our eyes. Because these things are always oozing out of the five aggregates, they are like tumors or so. And then another view, a Bhikkhu meditator must also see the five aggregates of clinging as a dot. Pinchu padanekanda sanlato yoni samadasikatava. Need to remember, can you follow me? Meditators must see the five aggregates of clinging as a dot. Meditator must see the five aggregates of clinging as a dot. When a dot penetrates a body, it causes sharp pain whenever you touch the spot. In the same way, our mind and matter, our five aggregates give us suffering of different kinds. Because we have eyes, we have to suffer the objects we don't want to see. Because we have ears, we have to suffer the sounds we don't like to hear. They are like darts in our flesh. Once a dart gets into our flesh, it is not easily removed. So the five aggregates are to be viewed as a dust, causing suffering, and the aggregates of clinging are to be seen as misery. Another view, the five aggregates are also viewed as aga. The Pali was aga. In one commentary, it is explained as dukkha, but Visuddhimagga explained it as being censurable, deserving of censure, like akusala karma, unwholesome karma, that is censured by noble beings and giving painful results. So the five aggregates are censurable because they give us pain, suffering, and bad results. So they are to be viewed as akusala, unwholesome. Another one is abhadato, vijupadanekanda, abhadato, yoniso manasikataba. Five aggregates are to be seen as affliction, which here means occasional sickness, such as a cold, indigestion, diarrhea, or fever. When you are sick for a few days and unable to eat or unable to do what you like, you may suffer because of this affliction. Even though it is an occasional sickness, it can afflict you with suffering. In the same way, our five aggregates are like occasional sickness. Since we are composed of the five aggregates, we cannot do what we like. We have to look after them, we have to protect them, we have to avoid which is unsuitable for them. Meditator is instructed to see aggregates of clinging as affliction or occasional sickness, abhadato. Now you understand seven aspects of the aggregates. You have to see your mind and matter of five aggregates as impermanence, as suffering, as a chronic disease, as a tumor, as that, as misery, and as affliction. All of the seven are aspects of being dukkha, suffering. So our five aggregates can be seen or in terms of these seven individual aspects. In seeing them as a disease, as a tumor, and so on, we are seeing the dukkha aspects of the five aggregates. Another aspect is parato yoniso manasikatapa. Parato is alien or foreigner. The person who is an alien is not in your power because he owes to allegiance to another country. He is an outsider and you have no authority over him. So we refer to him as alien. Our five aggregates or our mind and matter must be regarded as alien. Our five aggregates or our mind and matter not belong to us. is something we cannot control. These alien aspects belong to anatta, no self. And now we come to the anatta nature of things. The teaching of anatta is the most distinctive features of the teaching of the Buddha. It is the most difficult to understand, the most misunderstood, and the most misinterpreted of his teaching. The Buddha appeared at a time when most people strongly believe in the existence of an inborn entity called Atta. Almost all other faiths believe in one kind of Atta and another. The Buddha appeared and he taught that there is no Atta, no soul, no self. There are only the five aggregates. There are only the mind and matter. And these five aggregates of mind and matter are not Atta, not self. In order to understand anatta, first we need to understand Atta, which in the time of the Buddha was seen as different things. We are seen as a master, we are seen as one who lives somewhere permanently, as an active person, and as one who fully experiences both joy and suffering. According to these views, there is also something called an atta residing in one's body, and this atta is a master. It is master of itself, and it is master of the body. There are people who think that they are master of themselves. They do what they want to do, they say what they want to say, and they eat what they want to eat, and they go where they want to go. If they really think they are master of themselves, they should try practicing meditation for a few minutes. And they see if they can keep their mind on the object, then they would really see if they are master of themselves. Their minds will wander quite often and not stay where their owners want them to stay. Faced by the five aggregates, there is this helplessness in us. So we will continue another nature. Tomorrow we have to stop our discourse for today by practicing vipassana meditation by observing every phenomena occurring at the six windows, by noting rising, falling, sitting, stretching, bending, seeing, hearing, smelling, continuously and meticulously. May all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all yogis realize the real peace in the very near future.